meeting held under the auspices of the Ramakrishna Ashrama, Ramakrishna Ashrama Indore. You have been told about the origin of this ashram and the activities that are being carried on. As it is at present, perhaps the work that is conducted with the ashram is not a very imposing thing. Nevertheless, it is just a beginning in the right direction. As days go by, the work will certainly progress, and gradually more and more souls will join in this activity of the ashram, and through the grace of Sri Ramakrishna, with whose name the ashram is associated, through his grace, it will grow into a beautiful center for the service of the people, not only of Indore only, but of places around it. The desire has been expressed that gradually the center may be affiliated to the Ramakrishna Math and the mission. Perhaps it will be so in due course, but even otherwise, the work that is being done by the devoted souls has got its merit insofar as it is here that the seed has been sown of the mighty institution that will spring up eventually from this small beginning. The Ramakrishna Math and Mission, it is an institution which is spread over different parts, not only of India, but of other places as well. There are branches in other countries of Asia. Some centers there are in Europe, and quite a number of them in the United States of America, also South America, and some islands like Mauritius and Fiji. There are private centers run with the same ideology. Quite a number of them are being run. That number is much larger than the actually affiliated centers that we have. And everywhere the work is being done admirably. So the Ramakrishna Vivekananda movement that is the topic of for this evening, this movement does not mean merely the work that is conducted by the Ramakrishna Math and the Ramakrishna Mission through its headquarters and affiliated branches, but it is the work, it is the movement that is being carried on through a large number of unaffiliated institutions who are following the same ideal as that of the Ramakrishna Math and the Mission. And it is through them all that the movement is spreading. You may be pleased to know that the number of such unaffiliated centers are too many to be counted. Many are not known also so prominently, but they are spread over different continents, and so many centers are there that if we like to go through all of these centers, it will take perhaps a long time for us to complete the itinerary. It is a very happy sign that the ideas are spreading like that. It does not depend upon any particular organization through the instrumentality of which the ideas are spreading. The ideas have got their appeal everywhere, and in different countries we have got centers where a group of people associated with these ideas, interested in these ideas, are just building up their own associations and thereby being instruments in the hands of Providence for spreading the movement. The word movement is a very happy choice because actually it is not an organization or a number of organizations, it is actually a movement. And we shall have to see what the characteristics of these movements, or this movement, are. As we have seen, the movements or the movement is associated with the twin names of Ramakrishna Vivekananda. Now thereby we can understand what is the true significance of the movement. Because it is through these twin personalities, by just going deep into the significance of these personalities, that we can understand the direction to which the movement is proceeding. They become light which is guiding the course of so many institutions, affiliated or unaffiliated, following the ideal of Ramakrishna Vivekananda. And it is in the fitness of things that we discuss here. What are those characteristics which are making the movement so popular? Wherein lies their movement for people of different cultures, different nationalities, different kinds of ideas and ideals with which people are usually imbued from their birth, and the goal that they are seeking. It's a really wonderful thing that people with so much of divergence in their outlook, in their culture, in their nationality, in their tradition, should have so much appeal for the movement. It is worth studying, and you may be pleased to know many great intellectual people of different countries are concentrating their mind on the investigation of the implications of the movement. You know, different universities of this country are carrying on research on this movement. And you may be pleased to know that in other countries also such investigations are going on. people who are intelligent, people who are conversant with how things are moving in this world in different countries, they somehow got great appeal and they want to understand the true spirit behind the movement, which is the source of the inspiration of so many people. As I told you, we are born different. We are born without different traditions. There is so much to divide us, one nation from the other, one society from the other, one sect from the other, that we get confounded and feel that perhaps there is nothing to bring us together except the scientific name, as they say, the Homo sapiens, humanity as we say. Nothing greater, nothing more binding than this accidental birth in the field of evolution of the human being. What more is there? But in spite of our various differences, there is lying an undercurrent which we are not perhaps aware of, which we do not feel consciously, but which is somehow, without our knowing, goading us from within to go out of our parochial limits and find ourselves spread among the different groups, different societies, different countries, and find out where lies the affinity, where lies the unity of the whole humanity. Now that appeal is there, and those who are really very intelligent and sincere seekers of this unity, they find an admirable opportunity to be associated with this movement. Now we shall discuss the characteristics of the movement. The movement started with the twin personalities, as I told you, of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. I am not going into details about their life. You are supposed to be familiar with them. I am just trying to bring out the significance in the lives of these twin personalities that were particularly of interest to a man who is trying to find his place in this world as one order, namely humanity. Now there is a trend, there is that sort of seeking. Even in politics we know that Wendell Will's is one world. Now that is how we are trying to proceed towards that. And we have tried and we are trying to make experiments in the field of politics, in the field of science, in the field of sociology, making experiments to find out how we can get together, live peacefully, being helpful to one another, and feeling one with everybody, coming closer together. That is an inner urge. It is an inner urge which must be there. Though we are not aware of it, sometimes we start with a small beginning. Man cannot remain satisfied with himself, so he just expands a little and finds his connection with the family, then one family is not a sufficient unit to satisfy us, so we spread further and identify ourselves with gradually, say, one country. Then gradually we go beyond the boundaries of the country, and then ultimately perhaps we may build up that one world. But then we have tried, perhaps with partial success, but yet the goal is far off. Politically we have tried through United Nations. In other ways also efforts are being made, but we have got to go a long, long way still. We have hardly made a mere beginning in this direction. Now in this, when the state of things is like that, then comes on the horizon the personalities of Sri Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. What is their contribution? Sri Ramakrishna was not a politician, not a man of science, not a literature, not an eminent personality in the sense in which we credit persons with eminence, and yet we find today that he is an irresistible force. Sri Ramakrishna, as I was telling the other day, is an unspoiled child of nature. From the very beginning he did not have any kind of sophistication, no education in the modern sense of the term. He did not travel much either. His field of activity was mostly a small temple garden in the vicinity of the city of Calcutta, through which his personality spread its appeal, drawing to him in those days mostly the people of the city of Calcutta. And then it was in that way, with a small narrow circle, Sri Ramakrishna went on giving his spiritual ministration to whoever came to him. Mostly it was the pilgrims who went to him that got what they needed, namely a sort of spiritual birth. Sri Ramakrishna himself was through and through a spiritual man. His whole being was imbued with the idea of spirituality. As he used to put it, I do not know anything except God. He was concerned with that God realization only, but then his God or his realization of God did not have any narrow meaning that we usually associate to these words. His God was the God, the Spirit, the presence that pervades everything. And realization of that living presence of God everywhere, that was his ideal, that was his goal. But he did not remain contented with merely that sort of realization for himself. He wanted to impart that realization to others. because the others that he saw around him were but manifestations of the divinity that resided in his own heart also. Everywhere it was the same being, the same presence, the same reality. He did not see much difference between man and man, or from one place to another, though he was, as I told you, not a man with long travels. Only very rarely he would go out of that temple garden and outside beyond the limits of the Calcutta city. But he only twice or thrice he had been out on pilgrimage. But then when he went on pilgrimage to Bihar and UP, those were the two places that he traveled beyond Bengal. And his experience was, it was the same thing everywhere. As he used to say, in distant lands, the same tamarind tree. The idea is that he did not see any difference. And whatever he saw was only the spirit. The divine presence everywhere, underlying all these so-called differences. The differences between men and men, differences between one country and another, all these are apparent, but actually the same living presence of God is everywhere. Throughout he saw that divine presence, and as such, he was perhaps the sole possessor of the unity underlying the whole of humanity. Why I say the sole possessor? Because others have tried to find only in a piecemeal manner. They tried to unite men politically. They tried to find out the underlying unity through biology or through other methods. But these are methods which only touch a fringe of the reality. Nobody tried as he did to see the one reality manifested everywhere, not by means of speculation, but through realization, direct realization from within. He saw his own God manifested within him as well as without, and as such, to him there was no difference. Not only his idea or realization of the unity of existence was so deep that not only human beings, he saw the same reality manifested in all beings, and there was no limit to that. As one day, that realization can go so far. I can tell you an instance. The other day, Swami Atmananda expressed this by just narrating one incident when two boatmen were quarreling on the river Ganga, and one man slapped another, and there was that mark of that slap on his back. Because he felt that if the other man was hurt, he was hurt. He was happy with the happiness of other men. He was sorry when other men suffered. It was not merely human beings, even other creatures. He was one with them. As for instance, when a man walked over green grass with boots on, Sri Ramakrishna felt as if somebody was moving over his chest. and the mark of the boot was seen there. He was so much identified with the whole creation. Now such a man cannot think of difference between man and man, or country and country, society and society, nationality and nationality. For him it was all one. Now that was the realization of the unity of the whole universe. That is at the center of whatever he has realized and whatever he has preached. And Swami Vivekananda was an exponent of that oneness of creation through his great realizations, through his great gift of oratory through which he preached this to the world. And that is how the movement had its origin. Now what actually are the characteristics that appeal to all people? Firstly, Sri Ramakrishna, from his personal experience, came to this conclusion that different paths through which different people travel with the idea of spiritual realization, all these paths lead to only one goal, lead to only one center. While in the beginning they might have started with much difference from one another, the traditions are different, the rituals are different, the dogmas are different, but even then, gradually as they proceed towards the center, the differences gradually become diminished, and ultimately, when we reach the center, the goal through these different paths, we realize that we have all been traveling from different paths as pilgrims, coming to one temple of God which is at the center. The different paths are like the different radii, all going gradually to meet at the center. That was the experience of Sri Ramakrishna, and not merely an intellectual speculation. He realized by following these different paths, just as the other followers of those particular paths went through the details of even the rituals, and ultimately Sri Ramakrishna had this on his personal experience, that we reach the same goal. The same goal, mind you, not that the Hindus reach one goal, the Muslims another, the Christians third, and so forth. Not that. He realized this, that because he followed these different paths literally, and came to this conclusion that all these paths lead to the same goal. And that is now the popular utterance that he made, and which is catching nowadays, is as many faiths, so many paths. But that does not mean it is true only in the spiritual sense. In other respects also, man's striving is for his spiritual goal. But that is not the only quest. We have to satisfy our physical requirements. We have to just improve our intellectual level. And ultimately and above all, we have to rise in our spiritual eminence also. Sri Ramakrishna knew one thing, God realization as the goal. But at the same time, he was not indifferent towards other things. He was not satisfied with a religion that did not care for the suffering humanity. He was very particular in this respect. He used to say that no religion is possible for a hungry soul. So those who are hungry have got to be given food. Their hunger must be appeased. Then their other needs, physical needs, will have to be met. Their level of understanding has got to be increased. And lastly, and the most important is, they must rise spiritually. Ultimately, the spiritual realization of the highest is the ultimate goal. But this goal we cannot have immediately. So as stepping stones, we have to just satisfy our physical requirements, satisfy our intellectual cravings, and then purify ourselves, our emotions, our intelligence, everything, to enable us to reach the highest, spiritual. Sri Ramakrishna therefore did not remain indifferent to the other needs of human beings. And that is why he taught Swami Vivekananda these things, that no religion is possible in empty stomach, which Swami Vivekananda never failed to teach always. You must have that idea. A religion is not to make one indifferent about the world. No. We are all together. God is spread everywhere. He has spread His presence everywhere. And if others die, we cannot live. So, our joys and sorrows are to be associated with the joys and sorrows of all humanity. That is why, when Swami Vivekananda wanted to remain merged in Samadhi, Sri Ramakrishna scolded him. He scolded him saying that you are to feel for others. The greatest personality is that which does not remain engrossed with the working out of his own salvation, but who shares the joys of his spiritual growth with others. Sri Ramakrishna scolded Swamiji saying that you must be like a banyan tree under whose shade weary travelers will come and find rest. So that is what Sri Ramakrishna wanted Swamiji to be, and he attained his objective very successfully, very eminently. Swami Vivekananda reached this ideal, and that is the greatest characteristic. One thing is, of these characteristics, Sri Ramakrishna said, God realization is the highest goal. Second thing, that simply because it is the highest goal, that does not mean we have to remain always indifferent towards others. Or the stigma that we have, that we are too much otherworldly and therefore neglectful about the progress in other fields. Now Sri Ramakrishna never thought of that. Swami Vivekananda therefore preached that in this country the first concern is to provide food for the hungry. Then he said, give education to those who need education. Then last of these, spread religious ideas, impart spirituality to the people who lack it in that respect. He traveled, Swami Vivekananda traveled not only throughout the length and breadth of India, but he traveled outside also almost the whole of the civilized world. And what was his experience? He saw the poverty, the ignorance, the degradation of India as a whole. He suffered for that. He went out with that desire to do something for this fallen country, as it were, who have gone down this scale of civilization by losing the spiritual heritage of the past and just suffering from abject poverty, ignorance and everything. So he went to America to get succor from the affluent nation so that he can come and help this countrymen. But when he went to the West, he found there was another kind of poverty present there. There was poverty of the soul, which he found conspicuously present even in the midst of that sort of material affluence there. So his heart ached for those people also. What he wanted was to bring about a harmony of these cultures so that India could gain many things from its contact with the West materially, and the West can gain many things from India spiritually. That was how the bringing together of the cultures would usher in a new era where people will be materially better off and spiritually also like that. Now that was the dream of Swami Vivekananda, and he got this dream from the vision of Sri Ramakrishna, which he cherished in his mind and whose teachings he tried to spread broadcast. Sri Ramakrishna was not a preacher, he was not an orator, he was not a public man. He lived his life never coming into limelight anywhere. But yet, it was he who quietly built up that great personality of Swami Vivekananda, through whom he ushered in a new era which is now spread everywhere and yet going deeper and deeper, striking roots in all countries, not with any kind of particular stamp, but just finding expression in the new urge for humanity to develop itself in a new manner, where spiritual and material will combine and make a whole man develop himself perfectly after the image of God, who is just the epitome, the culmination of perfection. That was the dream of Swami Vivekananda, for which he received inspiration from Sri Ramakrishna. That is why in the Ramakrishna movement, two things are there. We have been taught by Swami Vivekananda to not only work out our salvation, but help others, be of service, not only in the spiritual field, but in every field, wherever there is need, there should be the service. Now that is the ideal that Swamiji said. This is Atmano Mokshartham Jagadhitaya, so that has been stated already, for the liberation of the self, for realization of the self, and for the good of the world. And that good of the world in an all-inclusive manner, in all-inclusive sense, good in every respect. Make a man better man, physically, mentally, spiritually. And do that with the idea of service. Without that idea of service, it has no worth at all from the spiritual point of view. If we do not go to help others with the spirit of service, we shall be only increasing our ego and becoming a misfit in this world, only thinking too much of ourselves and too little of others. That will only create eventually discord and dissension, but never that peace which we are seeking. Never that unity that is the goal of our life. Now that is what is at the bottom of the Ramakrishna Vivekananda movement. The movement has at the bottom one thing is, say, realization of the self or realization of the spiritual goal, the highest reality that we have in us, and then helping others to have the same. Same through different kinds of service. That is what has been taught in our scriptures also. Sri Ramakrishna never took upon himself the pride of bringing in some new truths. According to him, Dharma is Sanatana, the eternal one. Truth is eternal. So that eternal truth has found expression in different forms, in different times, and at present what is necessary is that the truth has to be seen in an all-inclusive manner, that it should transcend all limits, all limitations, and prove to us and to humanity that God is everywhere. Your servant, whoever sees everywhere God, and God in everything, he sees God, he sees the reality. That is the truth. Yumam pashyati sarvatra, and sarvantamai pashyati, who sees me everywhere, and everything in me. That is the teaching of the Gita, and that is at the core of the message of Ramakrishna Vivekananda. It is not a religion that estranges one and makes one shut up into a small shell. Never that. It is expansion, it is liberation from all kinds of limitations. So behave like a frog in the well, thinking that I am superior to another, thinking that my religion is superior to that of others, thinking that I have got special privilege and I am the privileged nation. Never like that. For God, everything is the same. In God's eye, there is no difference. And when we try to just be a votary of God, a devotee of God, when we try to just imbibe that spirit of divinity, we become transformed into the same vision that God has got, namely all-comprehensive, never knowing limitation. That was the spirit behind the movement. That is why it is spreading everywhere. And though it is spreading everywhere, it is not merely as a school of thought, not merely as a society with certain regimentation, certain fixed dogmas to be believed in. Sri Ramakrishna never believed in that sort of parochial sort of religion or theory. According to him, as I told you, everyone has got God within. And if he limits God within himself, then he is only denying his presence everywhere. That sort of denial is irreligion and can never be consistent with religious idea, religious feeling. Now that is the spirit that has to be remembered, which activates the Ramakrishna Vivekananda movement. Service of God in the humanity, suffering humanity are there, but we do not be kind to them. We do not make charity to them. We simply serve them because God is waiting there to receive our service in the form in which He seeks our service. When we just feed the hungry, we are suffering the God in the hungry. When we are just ministering to the sick, there God is waiting as the sick person to be served. When we are imparting education to the ignorant, God is waiting there to be served as such. So everywhere His service can take any form, and in every way we should remember that we are serving God by serving humanity. Sri Ramakrishna got excited when somebody said that kindness to others. The very word did not, just annoyed him. He said, "Who are you to show kindness? You are simply a devotee of God. Serve God by serving the suffering humanity. Never take the pride of place. Always be a worshipper, and the object of your service as God in that form." That is the spirit behind the movement, and that movement therefore has spread in different fields. It has started, relief activities. It has started institutions where poor are fed, where the hungry are being fed. It has started medical institutions where the sick are nursed and treated. It has started educational institutions to impart education to people who need it. And lastly, and the most important, its idea is to spread the oneness of God and the service of God everywhere through all these institutions. So that is ultimately the service of God is, the service of man is service of God. That is in a nutshell, the spirit behind the movement. And that service should not be restricted to any particular field. Everywhere it should be spread according to one's capacity, according to the field in which he is placed. He has to go on doing that service with that right spirit that God is being served through all activities. As it is said, Yat karomi jagannamatas tadeva tav pujanam. O Divine Mother, whatever I do, it is service unto Thee. In the same way, we should remember being loyal to the ideal of Swami Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda, that may we serve God in humanity, in whichever form my service may be required. Thank you.